Welcome back to Morgan's video blog, Morgan's online blog in video format. Today I'm here to share with you Morgan's complete guide for attending conventions. As I contemplated approximately 82 hours of panels that sounded great for me to attend in under 4 days, I realized it's time for me to share my guide for attending a convention. Step 1. Assess. Should you attend a convention? Before deciding to attend any convention, ask yourself the following questions. First off, what is the focus of this convention? There's as many different types of conventions as there are conventions themselves. No two are the same. Some are more professionally oriented. Some are about pitch events. Some are workshop focused. Some are all about the party. Note, for the geek-oriented conventions I'm mostly referencing in this, they're often known as cons. Secondly, what are the expenses involved? There's a cost for admission. There's the distance, either gas and parking, which is often over $10 a day at some hotels, or plane and taxi or Uber money. Workshop fees, sometimes these are extra. Hotel room. Are there friends you can room with? Is there a crash board for the convention where you can find roommates? Food is going to be an expense. Spending money. There's going to be so much awesome stuff. You're going to want to take it all home with you. Can you staff? Staff is typically defined as someone who is involved ahead of the convention and is committed for the whole time. Or you can volunteer, which you sign up. Usually you let them know in advance, but you don't have to. You drop in, work some obligated hours, and you usually get something free like reduced entry fee or a snack, free food, something. How accessible is the convention? If the convention space has been around, you can typically find out from people who have been there. If it hasn't been a convention, you can call the hotel or the convention center and talk to them. Check to see what the convention itself says about accessibility. If they make it a priority on their website, they're probably going to be more oriented towards making sure their events are accessible. Next up, how large is the convention? Is it a local college con with a couple hundred attendees, or tens and tens of thousands of people flooding into Atlanta for Dragon Con? How well do you do with crowds? These can all, and also, how large the con is can also influence the next two questions. One, who are the guests of honor? Sometimes it's worth splurging for a writer you've always loved, an actor you admire, the launch of some new webcomic or movie or whatever. And another thing to look at is what sort of program events do they have? Program events can run the gamut from ceremonies, opening, closing, awards ceremonies, panels, concerts, screenings, readings, parties, signings, photo ops, video games, cosplay, costumes, contests. I may have repeated myself in there. You get the point. There's a lot going on at most conventions. And of course, are your friends going? It's always good to see a familiar face, especially if it's a friendly one, in a large crowd. So, you've evaluated all this and you've decided that yes, you are going to go to a convention. What do you bring? First up, clothing. If this is a geeky event, everyone in day clothes is going to be wearing jeans and a black t-shirt with something geeky on it. Do you want to stand out or do you want to blend in? It's up to you. If this is a more business-oriented convention, try for a business casual dress, although maybe put on a geeky t-shirt or tie with dress slacks or skirts and a blazer. You will want good walking shoes. Typically, you're going to do a lot of walking on concrete floors. Even if you're not, you're likely to be on your feet a lot more than I am on a standard day. Another thing to pack, costumes. Do you cosplay? Check before you dress up. Some conventions, like World Fantasy Con, aren't into it. Others encourage it, like Dragon Con. Some conventions allow more explicit costumes than others. Be sure you know the rules. And do note that there are some conventions with strict photography policies for hallway pictures, creepy stalker hallway photographers, and professional photographers. Rules can encompass all of these. Check before you make plans to do a big photo shoot. Another thing to bring, food and drinks. If you can, bring breakfast, snacks, and drinks of your choice. Hotels can be very drying, so you'll need to hydrate more than normal. And if you're going to be drinking alcohol, you're going to need to hydrate even more before you start drinking. Especially if you don't want to get con crud, which is basically general ick and colds that hit a lot of people when they get home from a convention. Another thing to bring is paperwork. What? You want to see if now is the time to pull out your business cards, print out your queries, your pitches, and your chapters. If you're going to a convention, especially if you're a writer like me, network. How do you network? You chat, you make friends, and then you hand them your business card. To anyone who seems open to it, don't just shove it in people's faces. It'll become trash, and you don't want to waste your business cards like that. So if there are pitch sessions, agents, or imprint editors, have printed copies of your pitch and your queries in front of you so you can read it or reference them, or if they're busy, maybe they'll ask for a copy, and just in case, have a copy of your first chapter printed out. Electronics. Some people like having laptops with them or live tweeting events. Have your electronics, a bag for them, and all your chargers. Bring a spare battery if you can. You're not always going to be near an outlet. Personally, I like Notepad and Pens. I mean, I love my laptop, but when I'm taking notes, I like to do it in a notebook, even at work. So I'm scribbling like mad in a new notebook that I bought just for this con. Yes, this is an excuse for a new notebook or to use one in that stash you've got. So bring a couple of your favorite pens to write with. Even if you're doing the laptop or phone thing, you might end up with a hallway autograph session or needing to scribble down someone's pizza order. You never know. So, you've decided to attend, you've packed, and you're there. What do you do when you get to a convention? So, I touched on this briefly when you were deciding if you should attend, but not everything's in the program book. One thing you can do at a convention, panels. A panel is typically a discussion between 3 to 6 panelists with a given theme. Usually there's a moderator to make sure the conversation sticks mostly to topic, that everyone gets to have a voice and one person doesn't totally dominate the conversation. Typically, these are about 50 minutes long, with about 5 minutes at the beginning to introduce everyone, 30 to 35 minutes of actual discussion among the guests, the people on the panel, and 10 to 15 minutes for audience questions. Different conventions, of course, have different standards. When picking which panels to attend, there are several factors to consider. I wasn't actually kidding earlier when I said that my first pass had 82 panels I was interested in seeing this weekend. Fortunately for me, there's only 35 available time slots. Some of them are double booked and some are quadruple booked. So there's physically no way for me to attend that many hours of panels in one weekend. So when I'm torn between panels and events, there are many factors that go into my decision. First off, what is the panel topic? Is it relevant to my writing? Does it sound interesting? Clearly. Have I seen it before? If so, does it have the same panelists? Is it a hilarious show or an awesome sounding concert? Maybe, I just want to relax for an hour. Maybe it's the what's happened in dinosaur discovery in the past year update, which is a great panel. Highly recommend. Next consideration, who is on the panel? Have I heard them before, as I mentioned? If this is your first time, even if it's your first time at a con, if you're going to more than one panel, you're often going to see the same panelists show up more than once. And you'll find that there are some panelists you enjoy more than others. That is a great way to decide on your last day and you're exhausted whether or not that panel is going to be worth your time and investment. Maybe for me, there's a panel I've seen before, but there's a whole new cast of characters. Maybe the panel has a friend on it that I want to support and I love hearing. Another thing to consider when deciding on panels is, do I need a break? Is this my 5th panel in a row? Do I need a nap or food? I might just be brain fried by this point. I need to check in with myself and let myself skip an event or panel from time to time. And another consideration is, will I need to queue up? At Worldcon in Helsinki 2 years ago, the panels proved far more popular than they'd anticipated. And so to get into any panel, you had to queue up an hour in advance. So I just skipped half the panels, and as soon as I finished one panel, I'd go sit outside the one in an hour that I would want to see next. And it enforced some downtime, which was kind of handy for a frantic con attender like me. Other things at conventions, events. There are tons of events. There are signings from actors or artists or writers and more. There are dances, anything from a folk dance lesson to a rave to a ball. There are workshops. These can vary in length from the standard panel length to a full day or a 3-day workshop. The longer it is and or the more prestigious the person running the workshop, the more likely you're going to have to pay extra to attend. Another thing you'll find at some conventions are things called coffee clatches. It's a word that was picked up in like the 50s, 60s for like housewives sitting around drinking coffee. But these are small gatherings, usually with one of the guests of honor, that are just organic conversation. They kind of intimidate me because they're all so intimate. I haven't actually been to one, but people love them. Some conventions have parades, either certain groups or free-for-alls or costume required. I mentioned earlier there are ceremonies. Most have opening and closing ceremonies. Some have awards assemblies, like Worldcon has the Hugos. There are concerts, everything from a cappella groups to ballroom-sized metal concerts. And sometimes there are pitch events where you have the opportunity to pitch or practice your pitch with an actual agent or publisher. Pitching live can be a "I'll sign you now" kind of thing, but probably not. It's more often a thanks or no thanks sort of thing, with the occasional "that sounds nice, please submit to me." Sometimes that's genuine, sometimes they just don't want to give you a hard no to your face. But often you can get feedback and improve your pitch while you're there. Other things you can find at conventions, gaming rooms with board games or video games or LARPers. You can find a lot of stuff going on, and this can be a really good way to get to know new people without having to resort to small talk that many people wrongfully disdain. Martial arts, these can be demos or classes and everything in between. Longsword, jujitsu, who knows? There can be crafting, demos, or classes as well. Anything from fiber arts to drawing and painting to gluing together fake steampunk guns. Another thing you'll often find at conventions is the art show. Sometimes it's just a display, but often artists of all kinds submit to have their art displayed, and many are paintings and prints, but there's also fiber arts and jewelry and woodcraft and pottery and whatever else you can think of. And often they go up for a silent auction with a small piece of paper by it for people to write their bids. You usually use your badge number as your bidding number. And like eBay, there's often a higher buy now price, and you can just walk out with it. Many of the artists will also have tables in the dealer's room for sale. Those are typically less expensive. And the art show usually wraps up on Sunday or the last day of the con. And sometimes there's a live auction. I've been known to Vanna White a time or two. And the rest of the time, if you're the winning bid, you need to show up before the art show closes, pay the price, and take your item away. Otherwise, you might lose the item, or there's going to be a lot more hassle getting the item to you. Which leads greatly into the next topic, shopping. Some conventions have large vendor rooms, and some have segregated dealers' rooms and for people selling merchandise, and artist alley for people selling homemade things like prints and books they wrote themselves. You can buy any sort of art, con-themed clothing, costumery, swag, books, and more in a vendor room. Another thing you'll find at a convention is called the con suite. This is a lifesaver for the budget con attendee. This is a room to relax, socialize, and snack. Often they'll have like oatmeal and cereal bars for breakfast and chips and bread and peanut butter and jelly. These rooms might have more, they might have less, but they'll have some low level of sustenance for those that need it. Next up, party rooms. In what I like to think of as traditional or old school science fiction fantasy conventions in North America, there's a tradition of a party board where room parties are just posted. Many are registered ahead of time and end up assigned to a room on the same stretch of hallway to kind of isolate the noise. These are typically door propped open, mild to moderate decorations, some swag, some snacks, and a couple of hosts. And often music. If the event and location permits, there may be alcohol. People often party hop, sticking their head in every room going down the hall and snagging refreshments before going to the next one. Most of these events are hosted by other conventions to try and drum up interest and early membership to help finance their convention. Some of them are bid parties. Both Worldcon and World Fantasy Con travel from year to year, like the Olympics. And like the Olympics, cities bid to host, votes are cast, and there's a winner. I've helped host the DC 2021 Worldcon bid party twice. Luckily, no one is currently running against us. Also, both parties I helped with were in Baltimore, which is really close to DC, so the locals were on board. There are also invite-only parties, or so I've heard. Typically, these will have alcohol, and some even check IDs at the door so they can't get busted. And I've heard of, I think I attended once, a party with an actual DJ and a bouncer at Dragon Con. So that was kind of cool, if loud. So another thing to do at conventions is, of course, socialize. There are people around interested in the stuff you're there to see. Talk to them, admire something in front of them, play games with them. The key to networking is making friends. Note, If you see an agent at a convention, if they're in the program, you can approach them as long as they're not in a rush somewhere or look to be in a serious conversation. And just after you introduce yourself, just chat. And if there seems to be a good moment, give your one-line pitch. Do not give your full query. Do not hand them your manuscript. If you see an agent and they are not in the program, they're probably there for meetings or off the clock, and you should leave them alone or buy them a drink. They usually won't say no to that. There's an informal thing called BarCon where many of the writers and agents and stuff hang out at the bar. So that's a good place to hang out and chat and socialize. Don't push business cards at them. Don't throw pitches at them. Just get to know people and maybe buy a round of drinks. If this is your first or second time at a convention, at a particular convention, you might feel a bit left out. It seems like everyone else knows everyone and they're having an amazing time and you're just locked out. But these are fans and they love talking about their fandoms and they love audiences. It can take 3 times or more to really start feeling comfortable at a particular convention. But these are relationships that have been built in long weekends over years. You have to put in the time to get there. But if you're open to meeting people, there will be people open to meeting you. Which brings us into the next topic, taking care of yourself. To be respectful of others, you need to be respectful of yourself and not push your limits. Do not skip more than one shower. Do not skip more than one meal. Do not skip more than half a night's sleep. You'll feel better about yourself, you'll look better approaching people, and you'll have more patience and energy. Hotels and convention centers, I've mentioned before, are one of the most dehydrating places on Earth. I've been known to bring humidifiers when attending winter conventions to stave off colds. You will need to drink more than you normally do, and I'm not talking alcohol. If you've forgotten or lost some of your toiletries, maybe they melted in the car, you can ask the hotel staff or acquire some at the hotel snack room where they usually sell some stuff. If that fails, go to the con suite and ask a staffer. They can probably discreetly hook you up with some toothpaste or deodorant. Next up, when you're at a convention, what are the behavior expectations? First off, when you arrive at the con, typically, if you're staying at the hotel, you'll want to check in first, drop off your luggage. Often, they don't allow check-in before 4 p.m. To give them time to clean out the rooms from all the guests who left at 11 to 1. If you're early, you can often leave your bag with the concierge, but they'll probably expect a tip. Next, you want to track down the convention's own registration desk. This might be an hours-long ordeal or a 2-minute stop. It depends on the con and your timing. You'll need to have your ID on you, and if you haven't prepaid, money. They'll give you a badge and sometimes a program guide and a map. A lot of times these are now going to be on apps, so maybe preload that. Very often, Wi-Fi will work in your room, but not in the convention center. It's very expensive to get Wi-Fi for a convention center, and a lot of cons just don't have the budget. So, if you're not pressed for time, I highly suggest that you scope out where the panels you intend to attend are located, where the event rooms are, and where the restroom is in case of emergency. When you're attending a panel, what sort of behavior is expected? I try to arrive about 5 minutes early, unless there's a queue, of course, and be settled before the panelists are ready. I make sure that my phone is on silent or turned off. And don't take up more than one seat if there's a sizable audience. You don't want to, block people. It's just rude. Feel free to take notes, either paper or laptop. If you have a chance to ask a question, please do not be that guy. Have a concise question. Remember that the audience is here to see the panelists and not you. And don't use this as your chance to make an analogy with your own novel or gaming world and inspire interest in the audience or the panelists. Don't use this as an opportunity to show how clever you are and how you should have been on the panel because you could have answered the question so much better. I know you actually wouldn't do that, but there always seems to be one person who thinks they're not making everyone, including the panelists they think they're impressing, roll their eyes. Everyone does not like that guy. Don't be that guy. If the panel didn't address the question that you thought the theme was, now's a great chance to ask the question you thought it was going to be about. Or maybe you wanted them to go in more depth on something or take a tangent question. These are all good questions. If you must leave early, or the panel's not what you expected, or you're bored, or you're hungry, I recommend looking at your phone or watch with a startled expression, gather your things quietly, mouth "sorry" in slow motion to the panelists at the front of the room, and slip out with as little ruckus as possible. I know you're going down the center aisle and it feels like everyone's staring at you, but no. They glance at you, but they're paying attention to the panelists, especially if they're still going. In general, be open to new experiences. Chat with people. If it doesn't happen organically, hit the gaming room. Volunteer to help the con. Get involved in something with other people. When you're at the con, attend something con related. Don't just hang out with your friends or hide in your room. You're at a con. Take advantage of it. If you spot someone in costume or someone famous in the halls and you want to approach, evaluate the situation. Do they look rushed or exhausted or closed off? They may need some downtime. Cons are exhausting for everyone. If they look relaxed, be respectful and courteous. Start with an introduction and maybe a compliment. Don't be fake or fawning. Hi, I thought your work in whatever was so very well something. Or, hi, amazing work on costume part. Note, do not compliment a body part. Compliment something they can change in less than a week, like their hair, or a costume, or an accessory, that sort of thing. If the person after you initiate this conversation does not seem irritated or distracted, and you'd like a photograph or autograph, ask. This is a great time to do so. Do you mind autographing this? Or do you mind if I get a picture? And just because they're already getting a photograph taken by someone else or giving someone else a signature doesn't mean that they have to give you one and that you can just whip out your camera too. They might already know the other person. They might have asked them to take their photo. They might be trying to get somewhere else, like the bathroom. You don't know why they say no, but you have to take a no and take it courteously. And if you do, the chances are they're going to say yes later. And now for a tricky thing after the con. Wait, you need to tell me what to do when I get home? Yeah, some people hit their limit and are ready to leave. Many of us linger and want to catch last-minute hugs and waves. When you get home, chances are you're going to want a nap. Probably some water and maybe even some vegetables. Who knows? Watch out for an energy drop. That's not just the need for a nap. This is known as con drop. You've just been in on mode for 2 or more days, For many of us, this is a unique opportunity to be surrounded by other fans where your interests are common, not unique. There's a particular energy for each convention, and when you leave that, it can feel isolating or irritable or just plain exhausted. You may just have gone in with high hopes and had them dashed, or had the time of your life. But you're going to need to take care of yourself when that energy drop comes. The trick is to know what you need. For me, it's often water, naps, and downtime. Then writing up my con report and posting online and trying to connect with everyone else who was there. For others, they may need to cave for 3 days, or they may want to make dinner plans with friends for the next few nights so they don't go from 100% socialization all the time to nothing. It can be a stark transition. So taking care of yourself doesn't end just because you're home, but with any luck, you'll enjoy your convention and be ready to go back for more. Let me know if there's anything I missed in Morgan's complete guide to convention attending. And as always, tune in next week for more writing tips and writerly musings. Bye-bye.